Of course, we want our ISO as low as possible, but this is something we'll budge on if necessary. So if we need to bump it up, feel free to bump it up if you need to under low light conditions. White balance in auto, adjust as necessary. If our subjects aren't moving around too much, the one-shot mode works well. With the focusing area, I might choose one spot exactly where I want it with that particular subject. I also could see using the servo mode and using subject tracking, especially for a subject that might be moving around a little bit. So both of these are good autofocus options, just depending on the type of subject that you're actually shooting. And as far as the drive mode, single shot is going to be fine. There might be situations where you do want to use the continuous shooting if you do want to get a burst of images. All right, now where this camera is really in its forte is action photography. All right, so in this case, we're going to be making a lot of changes on the camera. Once again, I do like manual if you want to keep consistent exposures with consistent lighting. Now, if the light's changing, that's a good reason for going to aperture priority or one of the other modes on the camera. Shutter speeds, well, it's going to depend on how fast your subjects are moving, but you're going to probably want 1/500th of a second or faster for fast-moving subjects. This is where apertures of f2.8 and faster are really handy. Sometimes you don't have a lens that goes down to 2.8. If not, you probably want to set it to the most wide open setting. If it goes wider than 2.8, sometimes that gets to be too shallow of a depth of field. So it depends on the lens and the situation that you're shooting, but 2.8 is a great sports aperture. ISO, of course, we would prefer to be at ISO 100, but usually with that faster shutter speed set, we're going to need to bump up the ISO. So an ISO of 400 is a good starting point. If you're shooting indoors, it's going to be much higher, like 6400. White balance at auto, adjust as necessary. AF operation, one of the most important setting changes here. Servo, this is where it's tracking subjects moving towards you and away from you. And so that's generally the first setting change I make when I go to shoot action photography. Focus area, oh boy, do we have a lot of options here. My first favorite is zone 1, which is a customizable zone that I would customize according to the event I was shooting and where I was shooting. This is a great ability of this camera to be able to change that size. So if you're a little bit closer, you can have a little bit bigger point so that you can choose a target area about the torso size of your subject if you're shooting humans, or whatever size of the subject you happen to be shooting. But of course, the other great option, and probably my first choice for most situations, would be subject tracking. It is so incredibly good at sticking to that subject. Oh man, it makes sports photography, it's like cheating. It is so far beyond what I started off when I was in college shooting sports. What this camera can do with subject tracking is unbelievable. And in the drive mode, I wouldn't necessarily go to the highest speed continuous shooting because there are a few caveats of when that's going to be used. Yes, 30 frames per second would be nice to use in some special situations, and I'll be more than happy to jump it up to that high speed continuous when and where necessary. But I think it's actually too fast for a lot of people and a lot of situations. So I think this is a good starting point for action photography. You, of course, are going to make your own adjustments from here, depending on the sport you're shooting, the lens you're using, your access, how close you are, and a number of other features. But I think this is a good place to get you started. All right, one final setup here, and this is general photography. If you were to leave the camera in the camera bag and you want to be ready for just about anything, this is how a good setup might look. All right, aperture value. This way you can kind of just pull the camera out and shoot right away, and you know you're going to get a reasonable exposure. Aperture value allows you to change very quickly from one aperture to the next, which can really give you the full range of photography. Setting it to the middle, f5.6, well, that's kind of not really here nor there. It's kind of right in the middle of everything, and you can adjust as you need from there. Make sure to keep an eye on your shutter speeds, that they are appropriate for your hand holding of the camera as well as your subjects. ISO, I like to leave it at 100. This way I know that if I need it brighter, I will adjust it for that case, and then I know that I recently changed it, so I can change it back down to ISO 100. And so you can set it a little higher if you want to, if you find those results acceptable to you. Exposure compensation set at 0, adjust as necessary, make sure that this is not bumped. This can be a major problem when you're in some of these semi-automatic modes. White balance at auto. AF operation, as long as your subjects aren't moving around, the one shot works pretty well. 1-point AF allows you to be pretty discriminating exactly on what you focus on. But another good option is subject tracking. And once again, this depends on the type of subjects that you work with. Sometimes the camera is a little bit better at picking those subjects up than other times. And so depends on what you find for your type of shooting works best. And then finally, the single shot mode so that you get one single shot each time you press down the shutter release. And that way, the camera's, I think, set up for good general photography, nothing in particular. Alrighty, folks, there you go. You've made it to the end of the class, and I'm going to congratulate you. You're now an expert on this camera because you know as much as I do. This is a great camera. I think it's going to give a lot of you many years of great use. It's going to provide you with some fantastic opportunities at capturing great images. And I encourage you to really dive in, get this camera customized, and get it tweaked out the way you like it so that you get the absolute best performance with it. Wish you the best of luck out there shooting with it, and hope to see you again in another class.